Welcome to the Cast Blast Grill Chill podcast with Jeremy and Trevor, the podcast that's all about hunting, fishing, grilling, and chilling out and having a good time in the outdoors. Welcome to Cast Blast Grill Chill. Today we are thrilled to be joined by Jackson Harris, Regional Director of the National Wild Turkey Federation. Jackson, how you doing today?
Oh man, it's turkey season. I couldn't be any better.
And we also have Josh Fulcher here of East Texas Hunting Club, and we're going to talk turkey today. Jackson, how long have you worked for the NWTF?
On field staff, just about a year now. So it's been a good year. I moved to Texas to take the East Texas Regional Director job about this time last year. But been with the NWTF for as long as I can remember. Both my parents and my older sister, everybody kind of in my parents' friend group volunteered with our local NWTF chapter in Barber County, Alabama, while I was growing up. So, I mean, man, I've been around it in our hunting heritage banquets, all my life. So it's cool to be an official part of the field staff team, but I've been a part of the greater NWTF team since, as long as I've had memories.
And what are your areas of responsibility?
Yeah, so our organization's kind of split into two main halves. Half of the side of the organization gets to spend the money we raise, work with our partners at state and local agencies. So here in Texas, it's working with TPWD and also working with the Forest Service and, Fish and Game, these sort of other governmental agencies. So that's the conservation side. My counterpart on conservation in East Texas is Annie Farrell. She lives up in Lindale and does work on management areas and all kind of both public and private land all up and down East Texas. So I'm on the other side of the organization that helps fund the projects that Annie and our local volunteers are putting on the ground for both habitat work and hunting heritage work. So my roles and responsibilities are to work with our volunteers who host fundraisers and outreach events throughout the year, and then do what I can, including these podcasts is a pretty cool part of my job, to recruit new members and start new chapters to make sure that we're creating a new generation of hunters who will take up the mantle of hunting and preserving the hunting heritage both in season and then out of season by creating these sort of communities around these sort of organizations.
And how big is your region that you cover here in Texas?
So I work from about the Red River, separating Texas and Oklahoma, on down to about Huntsville, Texas or so, is about far south as I go. And the furthest west I go is Terrell, Texas. In fact, we just had our hunting heritage banquet there Saturday night, and then I work over all the way to Texarkana and down the Louisiana state line. So basically all of northeast Texas, and then my counterpart out of Austin, Mike Schaus, is the regional director for what we call South Texas, which includes Houston and Beaumont. Okay,
that's great. What is NWTF's background? When was the organization established, and what's the NWTF's prime directive, and what platforms are the NWTF doing right now?
Yeah, so that's a fun question, especially since this year is our 45th anniversary year, which apparently is our sapphire anniversary. It's news to me, but we made a big deal of that. We had some Kimber sapphire guns we used for promotion at our convention in Nashville this year because it was sapphire anniversary, and I'd never heard of such, but apparently that's 45th. So we started in 1973. Local hunters got together in South Carolina and said our turkey numbers are to dangerous levels, which was known. We knew that for most of the last century, and in 73 we finally got a group of people who said, man, we've got to do something about this. We can't leave this up to fate or to the government or anything like that. So a group of hunters got together, started self-imposing hunting seasons, and started raising funds at these local events that we continue to have today to start funding habitat work, and most importantly at the time was repopulation efforts. So from the beginning of our organization and through today, our mission has been that the NWTF is committed to the conservation of the wild turkey and preservation of our hunting heritage. So at the time, that meant going to places that still had healthy turkey populations, figuring out a way to trap live wild birds, and then relocate them to places that had struggling populations. We're still doing some of that in East Texas, but for the most part, in about 2004, we reached our goal that we had started in 73 of having turkeys in I think it was like 99% of inhabitable land, which was our peak. So we had our turkey numbers back in 2004. We had completed it. We had done everything we could to keep the turkeys there. And unfortunately, our turkey numbers have started to drop because turkey is an interesting species where you have to kind of keep on it or it starts to struggle again. Where we're at right now is still dedicated to the conservation of the wild turkey and preservation of our hunting heritage, and we kind of refer to that these days as save the habitat, save the hunt. And we're doing everything we can to also recruit new hunters to make sure that the future generation has the opportunities that we have.
So can you go a little deeper into the Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt program? I was reading about that on the NWTF website, and it seems like a great program you guys are doing to expand public access to hunting and as well as restore habitat.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's kind of got three parts. One, we want to make sure that we're recruiting new hunters. We also want to make sure that we're improving in wildlife habitat like we always have, and giving those new hunters we're creating more public land access. I don't think it can't possibly mean anything more in any other part in the country than it does right here in Texas, where such a grand percentage of the state of Texas is privately owned, so public hunting land is so hard to come by. And our eastern turkeys have struggled historically, and so the more we can do to make sure that their populations are up in East Texas, the better. And then we've got, y'all know the numbers. I mean, I'm not telling your audience anything you don't already know, but our hunter numbers across the country have dropped steadily for so long now. We're getting to a point that if we're not replenishing those hunter numbers, and I mean reactivating people who used to hunt, recruiting people who have never hunted before, and retaining the hunters we already have, if we're not doing those things, and that's a cross-country effort we refer to as R3, then you can forget it. I mean, even if there's still a few hunters left in 10 or 20 years, there will not be a large enough number who are putting money into the system by buying hunting licenses and that sort of thing to be maintaining the habitat that we all love so much on public and private land. So there's like a critical mass of hunters in the country that you have to make sure everybody has hunting opportunities, and we're starting to get very, very close to not having that number and possibly losing our hunting heritage, to say nothing of culturally the challenges that hunting faces. I'm just talking about taking care of our own self and our own numbers. We've really got to continue work, and that's why we're doing Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt.
Seems like a great program. Can you talk a little bit about the National Wild Turkey Federation's members nationwide, statewide, and in your particular region there in East Texas?
Yeah, so I think our numbers in the state of Texas statewide right now is somewhere around 4,700 members, which is down from where it used to be, and we've got to we got to keep working hard. I've got chapters all across my territory in East Texas, probably about 20 active chapters or so, but that's just a small fraction of the amount of counties we have. So best case scenario, we'd have an NWTF chapter in every county or community area and that sort of thing. Now, obviously, that we've got multiple chapters in the Dallas area, multiple chapters in the Houston area and that sort of thing, and obviously there's enough people there to support it. But we'd like for people to be doing outreach events for what we call Women in the Outdoors, our outreach events for people with disabilities, our program called Wheelin' Sportsman, and then our youth program, which we call JAKES, which stands for Juniors Acquiring Knowledge, Ethics, and Sportsmanship. And I mean, I'm pretty sure we started with JAKES and worked backwards and said, I wonder what we can make that come up with. But anyway, so we want to be having those outreach events in every county in the nation. Now, obviously, we're probably not going to get there, especially not anytime soon, but we want to make sure you don't have too far to drive to be able to engage in these outreach events and help us host these fundraisers that put money back on the ground in East Texas and across the country. So our membership numbers are okay, but we've got to continue to make sure that we're retaining the members that we've had in the past and that we're growing. We're on an upswing right now, and of course it kind of has to do with the economy as well. When people have got a little extra money that they're willing to invest back into the resource, we obviously get a boost from that. And right now we're trending upwards. Things are looking great. They're looking positive in East Texas, but we got a long way to go to keep saving the habitat and save the hunt.
With those, with the numbers you said, around 4,700 statewide, and it's down from what they used to be. The NWTF is still constantly looking for new chapters, like you said.
Right.
You'd like to have one in every county, but may not have enough people there. So, the chapters that you do have, or the counties that you do have chapters set up in, how important is it for your members to actually get in there and be active and be a part of these chapters? I mean, can they just pay their $25 and never go out and do anything and still be effective? Or do these chapters have to have, some kind of organization and everybody's getting together?
Yeah. So, and every chapter is going to look different, as you imagine, as you can probably figure, because it's made up of individuals and it's made up of volunteers. I've got some great chapters all across East Texas that not only do they throw a hunting heritage banquet, which for those of you who've not been to one of these banquets or something similar for another organization in our field, it's a party. I mean, that's what it is. A big party where we have an auction, we've got some raffles, people will win guns or, take home a hunting trip, that sort of thing. We got all kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's a big party. So we've got chapters across the state and across the nation that just get together and they throw a party every year, and that's fine. But what makes those parties at the end of the day more successful for fundraising and all that sort of stuff is when you're also doing the sort of outreach and those sort of things locally. Like I was talking about, getting youth, getting people with disabilities, getting women involved, underrepresented populations in our hunting demographics and that sort of thing. When you're reaching out to those people, when you're supporting your local 4-H shooting sports and that sort of thing, when you're helping us with Turkey Hunters Care, which is literally putting turkeys back in your these are domestic turkeys I'm talking about, back in your your local food pantry at the holidays. Like when people see that money coming back locally, it's obviously going to help us out more in the long run for recruiting chapter members and that sort of thing. But since it is a volunteer-based organization, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And we have leaders that say, I'm going to have a hunting heritage banquet so that I can keep a chapter, but what I'm really what I'm really interested in is having an event for youth in this county. That's great, and that's what that chapter will end up being if you've got the leaders for it. If you've got a chapter that says, well, we've got some wounded veterans in the community and I'd really like to get them out on some whitetail deer in the fall, then that's normally where the focus is going to go. The only, we want to make sure that those opportunities are being taken advantage of, because that's half of Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt. It's making sure we're bringing in new hunters and retaining the ones we've got.
Absolutely. So with the membership costs that that the members are putting in outside of the different programs, like you mentioned, the Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt, the Jake's program, and then of course somebody's got to pay for this banquet hall that where you guys are we're hosting it at.
Sure.
Outside of those items, how is the membership money directly spent, and who makes that decision on how it's spent?
Sure. Yeah, so all of our events, like you mentioned, are membership-driven events. So we want to make sure that everybody that comes through the door becomes a member of the NWTF, so that we can put that money towards the mission and making sure they get a magazine. So if you don't know anything about turkey hunting or what kind of conservation efforts we're doing, Turkey Country Magazine comes 4 times a year to our members and that sort of thing. And obviously a little bit of money at those events goes to making sure you can host the event, so facility rental and that sort of thing. But the money that we make on our live auction or our silent auction or our raffles and that sort of thing goes into what we call our super fund system. And I'm really proud of the way this works. I'm a member of a lot of different field organizations that are involved in supporting our hunting and sportsman heritage and that sort of thing. But I'm proud of the way we do our super fund system. It works like this. The money that we raise at Texas Hunting Heritage Banquets gets sent to our headquarters in Edgefield, South Carolina, where it's held for use in Texas, and that money is distributed and budgeted by volunteers from Texas who make up our state board of directors. So we've got board members all across not only East Texas, but all across the state in general, and they meet multiple times a year to say, okay, that we've got this much money coming in from our banquets. We want to put this much towards our scholarship fund. We want to put this much towards our conservation work, removing red cedar from where there ought to be, just cottonwood trees in riparian zones, so that we're making sure we've got great habitat for not only the wild turkey, but a whole bunch of other upland species. We're going to put this much towards restocking eastern wild turkeys in Camp County or Henderson County or wherever. Or we're going to do this much work on the Angelina National Forest and that sort of thing. So it's volunteer raised money, it's volunteer allotted money, and the coolest thing about it is that right now in East Texas, our ratio of matching dollars is through the roof. I mean, I've heard numbers like at least 20 and 30, and I've heard right now I think we're at 40 to 1 matching dollars. So for those of you who don't know what that means is, let's say you go in and you buy a $100 raffle packet, you're at your nearest hunting heritage banquet. And maybe you win a gun, maybe you win a nice Alps turkey vest or something like that. But that $100 you just spent, we multiply it times 40 with our friends at Texas Parks and Wildlife, U.S. Forest Service, or whoever, with the money that we've already raised as hunters. And this is an important part. Nobody else is paying for wildlife conservation besides hunters. Certainly not to the degree we do. Hunters and sportsmen, anglers included, are the ones who pay for those hunting and fishing licenses. They pay for the accoutrements that you need to be able to go out and enjoy the outdoors. And those taxes that are on those items and the hunting and fishing licenses through the Pittman-Robertson Act are collected. But the only way we can unlock those for habitat projects is when it's matched by non-profit dollars like us, or even private dollars and that sort of thing. So we can take the $100 that you just spent on raffle, just having a good time on a Friday or Saturday night in Texas, and we can end up timesing that by 40.
Bringing home $4,000 over your $100 that you just spent. Yeah, it's incredible.
So you could end up winning a gun and somehow putting $4,000 worth of work in Angelina National Forest, and that's not work that I do. I help get that $100. Our friends on the conservation side talk with our friends at TPWD and the Forest Service, and they leverage those dollars. So it's a big team effort that includes volunteers who organize these local chapters, field staff who work with our volunteers to make sure that they have all the support they need, and our friends on the conservation side who can take the resources, and if you can pay $10 to play one game at one of our hunting heritage banquets, still, we're multiplying that on the ground for putting fire on the landscape in the piney woods, or making sure that we've got good riparian zones on our national forests or WMAs or whatever, and it's exciting stuff. I mean, so yes, you could get together and put together money in your own county and spend it in your own county and that sort of thing if you wanted to just have a social club and talk about hunting and that sort of thing. I guess you could raise money and then you could allot it, and every year you do work on somebody's hunting lease and that sort of thing. But what's proved to be sustainable throughout the decades that we've been doing conservation work in this country is when a number of people get together, pull what they can together, and then we can leverage it with the dollars that the federal government has already taxed on us, and then get that money back into these counties that need it most and that sort of thing. And in East Texas right now, we need it most. In fact, not only are we raising money for East Texas, but so are our friends in Michigan or Alabama or California or whatever, because so much habitat work is being done in East Texas. And people in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or Nevada or whatever that love to hunt birds, they want to be able to hunt them in Texas too. And right now we've got a lot of work to do on getting Texas turkeys back where they ought to be.
Well, I know I want to hunt them, and that's part of the reason why we're here tonight talking about this. I'm going to be selfish.
Exactly. That's the point of me being a member of Ducks Unlimited, National Wild Turkey Federation, all the conservation groups that I'm a member of, is because, we as hunters, we're the ones who put the money in. PETA
right.
and all those people like that, they preach, they do the work for animals. But with Pittman-Robertson, Magnuson-Stevenson, we, the consumptive users, are the ones who put the money in to make sure that, this heritage that we have, will be here for future generations.
Yeah, and it's a year-round thing, right? So I know people ask me about, why would somebody that's hunting and that sort of thing want to take this other step? And the thing I tell them is, well, it's because we don't really have any choice. Nobody else is going to pick up the slack if we don't do it. Nobody else is looking out for the hunters or the wildlife that they hunt. It's either us or nobody. I mean, that's just the way it comes down to. And so, like I said, it's a year-round type deal. And I was fortunate to grow up watching my dad not only wake up. I didn't wake up every morning with him to see him, but I saw him get back later, after having been in the turkey woods every day during our spring turkey season in South Alabama, which means that not only was he hunting all through turkey season, but through the rest of the year, he was working on his hunting land, on his own private land, to make sure it was properly managed for wildlife. And then he was with his buddies raising money, throwing this party every year to raise money for the resource. And if you're going to take something out of the resource, even if you don't harvest a bird or a deer all year long, if you're going to go out and enjoy these public lands, if you're going to enjoy the species, the resource being there, being present, you being able to take your kid or your grandkids out into the resource, if you're going to do that, if you do this every year, if you've made a life of it, if you want that next generation to have it, it's a whole circle type thing where you also have to be putting something back into the resources. And organizations like ours, whether it's CCA or Rocky Mountain Elk or the NWTF, gives hunters, anglers, outdoors people the opportunity to give back during the other months of the year when they're not in the woods and even when they are in the woods.
So how many local chapters do we have here in Texas? And how many chapters do you manage being regional director over East Texas?
Yeah, we're probably in the 40-something chapter range, East Texas, Texas-wide, I would say. And I manage about 20 of those, probably high 40s overall, and we're growing, getting back to where we need to be. Like I said, the economy kind of dictates, how much money people are able to give back to the resource and that sort of thing. But we're seeing the economy on an upswing, and that means so are our volunteer organizations like the NWTF. They all take on different shapes and forms, like I mentioned earlier. I've got them all the way from our Red River Valley chapter up in Paris down to we're just starting, going to have our inaugural banquet for the Grimes County chapter right here around Navasota coming up in April. So they all take on a little different look. Some of them have 400 people at their banquet, and some of them have 80 people at their banquet, and we're able to have a good time and raise a little money for Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt every time we get together for one of those things. And we're not always throwing fundraiser events. Also, the chapter in Kaufman County up in Terrell, they had their banquet Saturday, and at the end of April, they're having their Jake's event. I've got a chapter in Mount Pleasant that does a spring fundraiser, and then in the fall they're doing a Women in the Outdoors event. And so we got things like that going on all over, and I'm hopeful that all these new chapters that we're building start off with the intention that they're going to engage in our outreach events and put as many local dollars as they can back on the ground in their county, in their local 4-H or whatever it may be that they have a passion for. It's a lot easier to start off a chapter that way than to convince a chapter to do more later on down the road.
I would have to agree with that. It's hard to change the way things are done rather than start them down the right path.
Right. Yeah, and so, but I'm hopeful. Like I said, we've got a great group of people who are already involved, and those volunteers who are already running successful chapters have been incredible at welcoming new chapter leaders into the flock, showing them what works for them, what doesn't work, and then also supporting those events. I've got so many chapter leaders who not only go to their own events, but they'll drive down the road and support their buddies, which it's fun. You get to see how other people do it, and the banquet that you're not running, it's a lot more fun to go to. You get to sit back and have a beer maybe and bid on that print of a white-tailed deer you really want or whatever. But we have a lot of fun. It's a great community. And if you have questions about how to hunt turkeys or where's a good place to shoot squirrels on public land or whatever, we got, a group of people around you. I think that's a cool thing, especially in today's world where community is so many times found online, and we forget that, man, it's cool to also have a community in real life, especially for something around a common interest like hunting.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think there's with all the organizations like the Ducks Unlimited and NWTF, once you actually get to meet the people that you've talked to online, you start going to these different chapter functions and you start putting a face to a name, and you start building rapport and relationships with these people. I can really see how the online social media platform helps could help generate the new growth in these new chapters and these new clubs, and which all that's going to do is just benefit the NWTF, the Habitat, the future generations, our current generations. Everybody's just going to grow together and be a lot more prosperous, you could say, and grow together. With that, so what you're telling me is it's not always about the money. So I think that there's a lot of misconceptions whenever you have nonprofit organizations such as NWTF, mm-hmm. that people are, they just want my money to where we can go out and do whatever with. What do you say to the guy or the girl that wants to get out there and put their sweat, blood, and tears into the releasing or habitat improvement or whatever? They can go out there and help work these functions, work these chapter meetings, but they just don't have a lot of extra money to where they can donate. They can't buy that $500 raffle ticket package. What do you say to those guys and girls?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd say you're absolutely right. Not only is it not always about the money, it's never about the money, and that's something for me to say because obviously I'm in charge of making sure there's money going towards our projects. But I grew up hunting turkeys. I grew up hanging out on our management area and going to the gun range on our management area and that sort of thing. And in fact, both me and my sister got a little help going to college because of the NWTF scholarship fund. So it's never about the money is not the ends. The money is always the means. And our resource, yes, it's money, but our biggest resource is the community of volunteers that we have that put on these events. So very rarely would I say. In fact, I'm racking my brain right now where one of my volunteers is also one of my major donors to the NWTF. There's a few exceptions of people who have been successful, and not only do they write big checks for the mission so that we can do all this work in East Texas, but they're also running a local chapter. That's very rare. Most of the times people fall into the lane that makes the most sense for them based on what their resources are and what their skills and passions are. So if their resources are a knowledge of how to run social media or how to organize people or how to do accounting, then that's normally where we find a place for them, right? If their resources are, I don't have any time in my day whatsoever, but I can show up one day a year and buy a whole bunch of stuff on live auction or spend a whole bunch of money on raffle tickets, there's obviously a place for them too. So if you're the kind of person who's like, well, I'm in a place in my life, and I'm one of those people who can't be a major donor and can't spend a lot of money at these events, I can get so much from volunteering at a Jake's event where we're teaching a young person how to shoot a BB gun for the first time, or helping organize these fundraisers where other people can pitch in with a check or a credit card. I can pitch in with a little bit of organization time, finding sponsor, table buyers or something like that, our local dealership or whatever, or helping set up chairs and tables. I mean, there's a place for everybody in these organizations, and I want to make sure that people know that. And again, yeah, it's never about the money. Obviously, if we could do it without raising money, we would. But as y'all know, to make sure that we have hunter access, to make sure that we have quality habitat on our public and private lands, and make sure that private landowners know how to manage their land properly and that sort of thing, this all costs money. And luckily, we've got good partners in the government who multiply the money we do raise by quite a big percentage.
And exactly how much is a membership to the National Wild Turkey Federation?
Sure. So a youth membership is a $10 membership. I think our collegiate membership may be $20. But your regular membership is either a Women in the Outdoors membership or an NWTF membership is $35. And like I said, that includes your membership, your magazine for the year, and it goes towards the mission. And that way you can make sure that you get updates when there's an event coming up in your area, whether that be an outreach event or a fundraising event or something like that. And those membership dollars help us a lot. And then it kind of goes up from there. We do have a team of development staff members who help find people who have a little bit more money to give and they want to be sponsor members or maybe lifetime members and that sort of thing, and we can do that. But again, we're an organization that, and I think people notice this when they come to our hunting heritage banquets. We're the kind of organization where everybody gets to play, everybody gets to feel like they're giving something back to the resource because they are. And we don't prioritize the person who's a Diamond Life sponsor, which means they've given $10,000 to the NWTF for the mission, over the Jake's member who just paid $10 or whose parents or guardians paid $10 to get them in. Because it takes all kinds of kinds. And again, at the end of the day, we want to make sure we've got hunters all across demographics for the next generation. If we don't, then none of what we're doing matters.
And once you join the National Wild Turkey Federation, and are you assigned to a local chapter, or can you choose to join a specific chapter? How does that all work?
Yeah, so our local chapters, when they throw those fundraising events, normally when you walk in the door, you pay for your membership and then whatever meal you're having. And so that's normally the ticket cost. And they may factor in a little bit to cover the cost of the facility and that sort of thing. So you're going to see a single ticket for one of these fundraising events being your $35 membership plus maybe $10 or $15 for your food. So that's where that money's going in the door. And then the other money we raise for the mission is if you walk in and you buy an item on an auction, or if you buy some raffle tickets or something like that, and maybe win a gun. Who knows? But if you get your ticket or your membership online or something like that, or you just call up the NWTF and say, hey, I want to be a member, then yeah, they assign you to a local chapter or something like that. But almost all of our memberships are done at a hunting heritage event. They're annual memberships, so that if you go to an event like this Grimes County one we've got coming up in April, your membership will be good from April of 18 to April of 19, and then by the time the next banquet rolls around, you can renew your membership there.
So what if you've got a current NWTF member and then there's a new chapter that pops up next county over, actually within his county, and now he wants to change, which chapter he's quote unquote associated with.
Right.
How does he go about doing that, or is that even possible?
Oh yeah, no, it's possible. Basically, you just buy a membership at that hunting heritage banquet that your local chapter or your new chapter is throwing, or you can just call headquarters in South Carolina and say, "Hey, I'm already a member, but I'd like to start, receiving information about this chapter now." So it's a pretty painless process. Like I said, they're annual memberships anyway, so if you bought one at your local chapter or the chapter banquet you went to last year, then this year if you go to the one that's closer to you, you'll just start getting information about that chapter, wherever you most recently purchased a membership.
Gotcha.
And also, if you attend another chapter's event, that also does extend your membership through another year.
Yeah. So I've got people who, obviously, if you're already a member, and I've got particularly state board members in Texas who visit a lot of our local chapters, a lot of times they just cover their cost of the meal, or our membership dollars is kind of cumulative. So let's say that in a year you went to 3 local banquets and bought 3 NWTF memberships. Well, you didn't really buy 3 2018 memberships. You basically bought 3 years worth of memberships. If that makes sense. So it'll keep rolling on, but obviously we want people to go to as many of our events as possible. And so once you've got a membership for that year, it's not really necessary that you keep buying memberships every event you go to.
You can also give those memberships, can't you?
Absolutely, yeah. Just whoever's name you put on that membership when you sign in that night, we'll start receiving the magazines and that sort of thing, and be a member and start adding to their totals over the year as well.
Josh, is there anything else you want to add about the local chapters and stuff before we start moving on?
No, I think you answered all my questions. I'm kind of ready to talk about turkeys and their habitat.
Yeah, me too. So, I got a question here for you, Jackson.
Sure.
What's the difference between a Rio Grande turkey and an Eastern turkey?
Yeah, so they're both subspecies of the American wild turkey. I think the Latin species name is Meleagris gallopavo or something like that, and my conservation buddies are probably laughing out loud right now because I don't speak Latin as Caesar did, but anyway, yeah, it's a different subspecies, so they're a little bit different in coloring. The biggest difference you're going to see in Texas is as how they act. Obviously, hunting a Rio wild turkey is going to be completely different than your experience hunting an Eastern wild turkey. They look fairly similar. You're going to see a noticeable difference in tail feather coloring. But the big deal is, if you've been out in the hill country, you've probably seen flocks of Rio wild turkeys around that part of Texas, and the population is very healthy there, to where we can take a lot of birds out of the resource every year, and still be able to hunt the next year. Eastern wild turkeys are a little bit more finicky, so they're going to be a little different hunting experience, where you're looking for them a little bit more difficult. They stay in more dense forested areas, so you can't just spot them as you ride down the road normally, especially not in East Texas. So you're going to have to hunt them a little bit harder. You're going to have to talk to them on the calls a little bit more. But that's why we've got so many members of the NWTF and of our hunting community that not only care about the turkeys in their own backyard, but they want to make sure that there's turkeys, in a few states over where they can go travel to, so they have the experience of killing every one of our species. We call that a grand slam or a world slam, depending on which of the subspecies you're
Let's
hunting.
see, there's Osceola, Ghouls, Rio, Eastern, and then the crazy Yucatan turkey.
We're missing one more. The Merriam's is another one.
That's
so
right.
Yeah, the one you're talking about in Mexico, that's an ocellated, and that's a little bit different too. So that'd be your world slam. But then Merriam's is also a United States bird as well.
I don't know, that Osceola, whatever that thing is down there in Yucatan, it looks like a darn peacock. It's all green and crazy.
Yeah, no, there were some mounted up at our convention in Nashville, Tennessee the other day, and those things are funky to look at. I've never hunted those birds before, but I was talking to a couple buddies of mine at the Pioneer chapter of Northeast Texas up in Clarksville, Texas, and they had gone to Mexico a few years ago and said it was a totally different hunting experience, but well worth it, although they said that's a trip they've done and they can mark that off their list.
So, what's the different nesting requirements between the Eastern and the Rio Grande turkey?
Yeah, well, obviously, your Easterns are supposed to be where you see these, southern pines or pine trees and pine forests and that sort of thing. Is normally where you're going to see the Easterns. And then as you get into the more the shorter trees, like we've got here in this part of the Brazos Valley, or moving out into the hill country and that sort of thing, those are normally the habitats where your Rios are going to be most successful in brooding and roosting and that sort of thing. I don't want to get too far into our biology stuff because I'll start making a fool of myself and y'all are recording it. So not only will I make a fool of myself once, but every time somebody listens to the podcast. But so far as our actual breeding and habitat requirements for each of the different subspecies, we've got a lot of that information on NWTF.org, because throughout our history, not only have we been working on the turkeys we've already got and hope to have, but we've been doing a lot of research with our friends at land-grant universities, state and local agencies. In fact, we've got a great publication that came out 3 years ago in East Texas, just on the management of the eastern wild turkey in East Texas. And that publication can be found, I think, on the Texas AgriLife Extension website, and you can order those publications about the research that we've helped fund on if you're a private landowner and you want to see some more turkeys in your area, the sort of stuff you can do right now. But I'll assure you, for the eastern wild turkeys, the biggest thing you can do is put fire on the landscape, which means prescribe burning in those pine forests at the best time of year. And you can either talk to one of our staff biologists or a biologist from Texas Parks and Wildlife to let you know how to do that, when to go to a fire burning workshop, or when we might can get some people there to help you do burning on your private land and that sort of thing. But my biologist friend was telling me the other day that in East Texas, you need to have fire on the landscape the same way that a rainforest in South and Central America needs rain. It's absolutely imperative that just because you've got pine trees there doesn't mean you have a healthy pine forest. If your bottom undergrowth is covered in yaupon or red cedars or whatever, then you got a lot of work to do to get it back to where it's good for not only the wild turkey but the bobwhite quail and a whole bunch of other upland species.
So why exactly have the eastern turkeys had such a hard time in East Texas? You said back in 2004 y'all met y'all's goal, and you said it requires, constant attention. But why exactly have, this year they've canceled turkey hunting seasons in East Texas? Why, have they had such a hard go of it? Yeah,
I wish that maybe we can, someday down the road, we'll figure out a way to get hog genes in wild turkeys, and we won't have to worry about it anymore. They'll produce wild hogs, and then they'll just be everywhere. That'd be great. I'm not advocating for genetic fusions or anything on our turkeys. Again, my biology friend, they're laughing their heads off right now. But it is a temperamental species that requires a lot of work. These are high maintenance birds, and I know that my friends who hunt or live in Central and South Texas think, turkeys? Are you kidding me? I've never done a thing for turkeys. I got Rios all over the place. I used this metaphor before. It's like if you're putting water into a very hot pan on the stove, right? If you drop it into a pan that's already very hot, the drop evaporates just like that. Whereas if you pour a bunch of it in at one time, you can keep that water in the pot. And if you poured enough on it, you could have it overflowing, which is why we've got eastern turkeys in urban areas in Ohio that are chasing UPS drivers, away from people's front porches. Those people kind of scratch their head and say, why is the eastern turkey doing so well there that it's in urban and suburban neighborhoods, whereas in the middle of the country in East Texas we don't have birds? And that's kind of where it is our habitat isn't yet to the population stage where it can reproduce itself successfully and spread throughout all the counties that we need them to be in. So it takes a lot of work. Obviously, the biggest thing is we got to get fire on the landscape. Second to that, East Texas is a lot more urban, and I say that I should say developed, right? It's probably the better word for it, is that maybe we don't have as many big cities as we do in other parts of the country, but we do have a lot of cities, towns, villages, whatever, unincorporated place, all up and down every highway throughout East Texas. So as people spread out, it makes it harder and harder to reestablish a population of any sort of species, but especially one as temperamental as the wild turkey eastern subspecies. So that being said, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. We just let out 80 birds in Camp County as part of our super stocking program up there. Some of them came from Missouri. The last ones came from Iowa. We just finished out putting that round of 80 birds, I think, last week up on Couch Mountain in Camp County. We're doing a whole bunch of work with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department also in Henderson County around Brushy Creek and that sort of thing. And I've had some committee members around there. These are guys who haven't hunted turkeys before, mind you, but they've been working hard for years at that local chapter to raise money for the wild turkey, and now they're sending me videos every afternoon of Easterns and Rios strutting around in people's pasture land there around Henderson County and Athens, Texas, and Palestine, Texas. If that doesn't get you fired up about what we're raising money for, I don't know what does. This is literally a place where we've got volunteers who've been working for years to raise money, and all of a sudden they're seeing the fruits of that labor strutting around on spring afternoons. Man, that gets me fired up. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, that's a testament to hard work and persistence right there. And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. Getting out there, putting the time, the effort. Creating a great thing for the habitat and us as hunters and the next generation. So it sounds like the habitat is the number one detrimental thing to the population of the East Texas, or for the eastern turkey here in East Texas. Because you always hear, well, there's so many coyotes, or there's so many hogs out here, there's so many fire ants raid the nest and eat the nest and or eat the eggs.
Yeah.
But even still, combined with all the predators and the ants and the floods and it still seems like it's the lack of habitat that
right.
That's causing the low numbers.
Yeah, I would. A lot of people say, well, maybe it's a death by 1,000 paper cuts, and it tends to be those are people who aren't currently trying to do anything on the land they have management access to. They say, well, why am I going to worry about putting fire on the landscape when the eggs are just going to be eaten by fire ants? I would love for fire ants to be our number one problem, because that means we've got a healthy turkey population, and we've finally gotten around to worrying about the little minor challenges that our turkeys have. But any biologist will tell you the biggest thing is properly managed habitat. When we can just worry about coyotes, when we can just worry about armadillos or whatever it is, the next thing that they're going to tell us is the problem with our turkey populations, that would be great. I'd love to start fighting those battles, but if it's a death by 1,000 paper cuts, one paper cut is a big one, and that's making sure that the habitat we've got is properly managed so that turkeys can walk around. They're just not like other species like the white-tailed deer or something. Turkeys, if it wasn't for their sight, they'd never existed anyway. These things have great eyes, which means they can't be in crowded up underbrush. They prefer to be in a little bit more open space so that they can see that coyote or whatever the predator is from a long way off. But if you've got cedars, if you've got yopon, if you've got all this brushy stuff in the undergrowth of your pine forest in this part of Texas, that bird doesn't stand a chance. They're not going to be able to raise a brood, and they're not going to be able to have a fair fight against those, whatever the predator is. I just want to level the playing fields. If we get into a situation where it's turkeys versus hogs, then we've done a great job on reestablishing the population. We're not there yet. It's not even a fair fight.
So what exactly does prime eastern turkey habitat look like in East Texas?
Yeah. Well, we've got, luckily, we do have several instances, examples. If you go up to Gus Engling Wildlife Management Area, if you go to some parts of the Angelina National Forest, it ought to look like you're going to see a lot of pine tree. And obviously, with any species, you're going to want some interspersion. So you've got some open spots here, you got some hardwood forest there, and that sort of thing. But the biggest telltale sign is if you're driving through the farm market road or you're driving through the highway that cuts through some of these lands, if you can see through the pine forest, it's probably good Texas eastern turkey habitat. If you see the pine trees but you can't see more than maybe 3 or 4 feet into the pine trees, it's probably bad turkey habitat. So you ought to be able to see pine straw. That's a part of the habitat.
Right.
That pine straw ought to hit the ground, and you ought to be able to see it. But if it's all hung up in the yopon or whatever, that's a pretty good indicator that you're not going to be able to raise a successful population of turkeys there.
So what habitat improvements have been done, and what plans for future habitat improvements do y'all have?
Yeah, well, so we, like I said, we do a lot of work removing invasive species. We do a lot of work cutting fire lanes on public lands to make sure that we can properly burn and manage and that sort of thing, which takes a lot of work. We do a lot of mulching work, which I'm gonna embarrass myself here. When I first came on board and my friends on the conservation side were saying we did mulching work, I really thought, what a waste of money. We're doing a lot of like landscaping and near these management areas or whatever. What they meant was they're going into those places that have an overgrowth of invasive species, and they're actually mulching the tree or the brush or whatever it is right there, and then it goes onto the ground, which makes a lot more sense than going to Lowe's and buying a couple sacks of mulch. So that's what they're doing. They're getting rid of non-native invasive species that muddy up the turkey habitat and kind of choke out. Also, water is a precious resource for turkeys and humans, and a lot of these invasive species are taking a lot of water out of the table. And so that the species of trees and plants that ought to be there can't survive. So we do a lot of that work. It's not the sexiest work in the world, getting rid of invasive species or cutting fire lanes, but that's where a lot of our money's going right now because it has the biggest impact on hunting land, opportunities for turkeys to survive. On top of that, obviously, we're still spending money in East Texas to capture birds in other states, bring them down here, test them, and then release them within a few days onto selected lands that those turkeys have the best chance of survival and reproduction rates. So, and those have a lot of success stories. We've actually got a pint night coming up Tuesday, April 17th, I think it is, up at Cedar Creek Brewery, where all we're going to be doing, we may have a few door prizes or something, but the main thing is just going through all the habitat work we've been doing there. So if you're interested in where some of this money's going, we're going to have a few brews at Cedar Creek Brewery here in a few weeks and just talk about where the money's going, how we're spending it in East Texas, and what the success stories we're having are, because honestly, there's a lot to brag about. We're doing a lot of cool work.
So how can the general hunting public of Texas help? Whether it be lease managers or guys wanting to help on public lands, what can they do to get with the National Wild Turkey Federation and help do habitat improvement?
Absolutely. So that's another thing that we haven't done a lot of in the past, but we'd love to see more of. Not only can we leverage the dollars that we raise through our volunteer managed events and that sort of thing, but we can leverage the amount of hours spent on habitat work on public lands as well. So if your local NWTF chapter or a bunch of your buddies wants to get together and spend a few hours one weekend working on a management area, helping cut those fire lanes or whatever it is, what we can do is count those physical labor hours as man hours as matching dollars to unlock some of those Pittman-Robertson funds. So yeah, obviously with your local chapter, if you've got time to volunteer, you can volunteer with our youth programs, our Women in the Outdoors programs, our Wheeling Sportsmen, but you can also get hooked up with some of our friends at TPWD and our biology staff and find out how you can help at the local field day at one of your management areas or national forests, and use the hours you can spend as leverage to unlock some of those Pittman-Robertson dollars, all those hunting license funds and that sort of thing. So that's another good way. If you've got some time on your hands and you're willing to work, we can leverage those man hours as well, which is a fun way to get out and give back the resource.
And also, that's on public lands. What about on private lands? Say somebody is a lease manager of a couple thousand acre deer lease out there in East Texas. How would they go about getting in contact with the National Wild Turkey Federation, with maybe one of y'all's biologists or one of y'all's habitat experts, to have y'all come out there and give some advice on what to do for turkeys?
Yeah, absolutely. So NWTF.org, I think /Texas will take you to our state page. And my contact information will be on there, along with the contact information of, we've got a few biologists on staff that can help you out. One of them is our actual East Texas biologist, Annie Farrell, who does a lot of work with landowners, making sure that they have all the resources they need, and she can connect you with other people in the network who can help you learn about prescribed burns or native grasses or whatever it is you want to worry about on your particular plot of land. We also, and I'm pretty proud of this too, I mentioned earlier, I think that Texas has such a small percentage of public land towards versus the size of the state.
Yeah, it's only 3% public.
Right, and so that's obviously a big trouble, a big challenge for us, especially since one of our goals is to open a whole bunch more acres for hunting access over the 10 years that Save the Habitats go. And I'm happy to report that we're 5 years into that and over our halfway mark. But one of the ways we're doing that is NWTF has 3 biologists on staff that are land leasing biologists, which what that means is they're going to places that have suitable habitat for squirrels or quail or dove or turkeys or whatever it may be, talking with those private landowners and getting them in our state private lands leasing program, where if you bought your public land permit this year for $48 or whatever it is, and you got that booklet that shows all those maps, there's a lot of maybe small, maybe large acre plots that are good for 1 or 2 species at certain parts of the year. What that is our land leasing biologists are working with TPWD, finding those private landowners who are doing a good job of taking care of their habitat and who are willing to let public access hunters come onto their land at certain parts of the year and harvest some of those resources. Now, that's something we're doing to try to fix, overcome that challenge in Texas of having such few percentage of public lands, and we're finding a lot of private interest in, hey, I've got this resource, I want to give more people the opportunity to hunt, and so our land leasing biologists are working with them to make that happen. So not only are we helping the turkeys, we're doing a lot for hunter access as well. So when you spend money at our events or you buy membership in the NWTF, you're helping us have those guys on staff to turn around and get you more opportunities to hunt, not in Wisconsin, but right here in Texas.
Well, that's great, because I've used the $48 annual hunting permit for years, and I've never used it for turkey, but I've used it for dove and small game for years, and that program is an excellent program. So here's kind of one of the big points that I know everybody wants to know. What restocking efforts have been going on, in East Texas to help out the eastern turkey? Because we all know the Rios don't need any restocking.
That's true. That's true. Although one of the strategies we're trying right now around Henderson County, like I mentioned earlier, is our friends at TPWD. Jason Harden is the lead turkey guru there, the turkey magician. One of the things he's trying right now is not only are we putting some eastern birds from Iowa and Missouri in that area, but since it sits on kind of the borderlands, the no man's land between eastern habitat and Rio habitat, we're taking Texas birds from other parts of the Lone Star State and moving them up there and basically just letting the turkeys tell us where they want to live. If the Rios start populating there, then great. We know that kind of boundary line is going to be more conducive to Rio habitat. And if the eastern start taking off, that's great. If they start hybridizing, even better, because all through Oklahoma they've got hybrids between the two, and people go to that state just to hunt the hybrids. So we've got ongoing turkey projects. Like I said, we just finished up 80 birds of super stocking in Camp County up in northeast Texas. We've got programs still ongoing on Coon Creek Club, I believe it is, down around Athens, and we're doing a lot of work there as well. Obviously, that's private land that we're putting turkeys out on, but what's different about our species, obviously, is it has wings. So if it's a big enough land mass, or you've got a cooperative of different landowners who have put their management approvals together, and you've got enough land to start a turkey habitat, we've seen birds cross over from Louisiana into parts of the central part of East Texas. And so our resource has wings, which means if you let them out of boxes on one person's land, they're not going to stay there. They're going to wander around, and they could travel between counties, even state lines, within a year. So if we do put them out on private land, it's not like they stay there forever. So luckily, we've got some great private land partners who are doing a good enough job managing their land that we have pretty good opportunities for those turkeys to have a high success rate of reproducing.
And how successful has turkey stocking been in East Texas in the past and currently?
Yeah, I think I've talked with you guys before about when we first started. We were raising pen-raised wild turkeys, if you can call them that, wild turkeys, but they were wild turkeys that we were raising in captivity and then letting out into the wild back in the 70s. Didn't work, so we started trying something else. In a lot of parts of the country, our stocking program worked pretty well, where we did like 10 or 12 birds in one spot, and then we'd go up the road and we'd release another 15 birds or something like that, and we'd go up the road and do it again. And those stocking processes worked in some places, but they didn't work in East Texas. What we're doing right now, we're seeing a higher success rate of, is what we call this super stocking. We're all in one spot. We're letting out 80 birds, 70 birds, whatever it is, so that we've got that critical mass in that area to where they can make it through a few brood seasons and spread out from there. Because of the challenges that we have to overcome in Texas, just spreading out the stocking process like we had with 15 birds here or there wasn't working. So we're willing to try something new, and the research backs it up. That's why another part of our mission and where we're spending money is to get that science-based research and then turn around and use it practically on the ground.
Well, I'm super glad to hear that you guys are adapting and not just trying to stick with the old standby that worked in the Carolinas or worked in Tennessee or worked even up in the Pacific Northwest where they have turkeys now where they never historically had turkeys, thanks to the National Wild Turkey Federation. Is there anything else you want to bring in before we bring in some questions from the East Texas Hunting Club?
I would say just double check NWTF.org. I'm sure there's a lot of gaps that we haven't covered tonight, and you may have questions. Obviously, you can get a hold of me. My information's on there, and I'd be happy to talk with you at any time about what's going on in your area, both on the volunteer side, or you can talk to our biologists about what kind of habitat work's being done on the ground. Man, I would say I'm fired up. I'm optimistic about what's going on in East Texas for the birds and for our hunting heritage of making sure we've got other generations coming down the pike that can help support these efforts. But man, I'm fired up. A lot of times these conservation talks can be doom and gloom, obviously, because if it wasn't some sort of struggle, if it wasn't some sort of challenge to overcome, we wouldn't be doing anything. We wouldn't exist. So I want to make sure you know we're on the upswing. It's just a matter of, are you going to join us in this success story that we're creating right now, our second success story of Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt, following up on our repopulation efforts that led into the 2000s? Or are you kind of going to stand by and let somebody else take credit for it? Because I assure you, some people are going to be able to tell their grandkids, I was a part of that. I'm the reason you're able to kill a turkey here in East Texas. I wasn't when I was your age. And some people are just going to reap that benefit, and that's okay. But I'm fired up about the amount of people who say, you know what, I want to be on the winning team. I want to be one of the ones who does something for the next generation. And when I get to work with those sort of people, it makes this job a whole heck of a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man, and that's what gets me fired up, because we've got so many people that we deal with on a day-to-day basis through East Texas Hunting Club and through the Cast Blast Grill Chill podcast that reach out, and a lot of the questions that we've already gone over tonight, of course, have come up on the Facebook page or on the Cast Blast Grill Chill Instagram page or their Facebook page. But so one of the things that we haven't really touched on yet was how does NWTF determine where we're going to have these super stocking programs at, and how often do they do them? Sure.
So the biggest thing, and there's a fact sheet that you can get from either TPWD or from Annie Farrell, she can send you. But the biggest thing and the hurdle to jump through is making sure you've got 10,000 acres. And a lot of people say, 10,000 acres, where do you come up with that? And the big thing is, it doesn't have to be just one landowner, obviously. If you get several landowners together who all have management access and approval on that land, then you can come up with 10,000 acres rather easily. But because of the fact that the turkeys and the transfer process does cost money, and the other thing is we don't want to lie to people and say, yeah, any place we let out a turkey, there's going to be a suitable habitat and they're going to have a nice brood and there's going to be turkeys there from now on. We don't want to lie to you, and we want to give the turkeys the best chance of success as possible. So there's an approval process. It starts with that you got to have 10,000 acres worth of land that you have management access to. And then they start looking on the maps, the GIS surveys, and say, okay, well, this place looks like it's got some interspersion. This place looks like it's gotten some good burning over the years. This may be a pretty good place to put out some turkeys. Then our friends from TPWD and our staff biologists make their way. They put boots on the ground and eyes on the habitat and say, hey, these guys have been doing a lot of work, or these men and women have been taking care of this habitat. All they need is turkeys. Then we start the process of working with our other state partners, whether it be Kentucky or Pennsylvania or New York or wherever we're going to get those birds from, and we start asking them to trap, and then the exchange goes from there, and we start releasing. So,
yeah, exactly. I don't know if our listeners are aware, but you cannot buy birds from another state. You have to trade another wildlife resource for those birds.
Yeah, it's obviously against a whole bunch of laws to buy wildlife, so that's not exactly what we do. But the way that we made the whole restocking process work back in the 70s and 80s is people like Dr. Earl Kinnemer came through and said, well, okay, no, we're not buying wildlife, but every bird or every deer or whatever must have some sort of value on it. So even if we're not buying and selling wildlife, which would obviously be illegal, there is a value, which means that if your state, Pennsylvania or whatever, if your Parks and Wildlife Department is going out and trapping these birds so that we can reestablish them in Florida or Texas or Wyoming or wherever, Although I don't think there's any eastern turkeys in Wyoming. But you see my point. Then obviously you need to be compensated for all that work and the fact that you've got one less turkey. So I think it comes up to something like, I don't know, $500 and something per turkey. That is a trade basically between the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and whatever Parks and Wildlife Department the turkeys are coming from, and they work really closely together. And it's NWTF boxes that they get shipped in, right? And we help them cover some of those transfer costs, and we help them leverage the dollars to maintain the habitat that they get released on. And it's not a process where we let turkeys out of boxes and then we're gone forever. Our biologists and the TPWD biologists that care so much about making sure that turkeys are back in their home state work with that landowner from then on to make sure that they're maintaining and have all the resources they need from us and from state and local agencies so that those turkeys have the best chance of success. They're being tracked. Right now we've got some great success rates. We got turkeys showing up where there haven't been turkeys in decades, and we love that.
So if you've got 10,000 acres, from your co-op, then you got good habitat out there. Then there's a potential for you to have one of these super stockings going on over there. But what about how does NWTF and the Texas Parks and Wildlife? How do y'all determine what WMA or what segment of national forest you guys are going to be putting them on? I know that we have so many national forest hunters, on the East Texas Hunting Club, between the Sam Houston National Forest, Sabine County, Polk County. Everybody's like, well, what about my areas?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, good question. And that goes for not only habitat work, but hunter access work too. I mean, we spent some of our Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt dollars, redoing a parking area for public land the other day, for where hunters needed to gather. It had been basically being used as a trash dump by the local community, and people were dropping off mattresses and tires and all sorts of stuff there. We got that cleaned out, re-graveled, re-gated, put a sign up and that sort of thing just for public hunters. So not only habitat work, but that sort of stuff's done too. The way it works is, kind of circling back to what we talked about earlier this evening, that money that's raised at our Hunting Heritage Banquet, that's budgeted out by our volunteer state board of directors, our friends from whatever agency, whether it's a wildlife management area or a state park or a national forest, they submit an application to that board of directors and says, here's the project we want to do, and obviously they work with our staff biologists to go through the paperwork and that sort of thing. Here's the project we want to do, here's how much it costs, and that may be a new backhoe for fire lanes, or it may be removal of eastern red cedar or something like that. Can we get the money for this? And then our volunteers either say yes or no. This is the kind of thing we raised money for, or it's not. Until this past January, when we had our last board meeting, mostly anything that came down the pike that met our mission, that was sent in by those agencies that said this is what we want to do for the wild turkey or this upland species or whatever, was approved. Unfortunately, I think January was the first time in a very long time where we had to say, we can cover most of these, but one or two of these, maybe we'll have them funds for, maybe we won't. And that's a wake-up call to Texas volunteers that maybe you have been throwing a Hunting Heritage Banquet for a few years, but it's still as important, if not more important now, that we're raising those funds. Because like I said, if those organizations, those state and local agencies, those public land operators and wildlife managers, if they don't have the money from us, they don't have it. That project doesn't get done. There could be $70,000 worth of Pittman Robertson funds earmarked for that sort of habitat work. But unless we can give them the $10,000 worth of, private partnership that they need, that $70,000 disappears. It doesn't get allocated next year. So unless we raise the money at these local banquets, then that what would be $80,000 of work on the ground doesn't get done. That was a big wake-up call for us. Is we got to kick it into gear. We got to let people know where we're at, and that we're starting to have to turn down habitat projects. That's never where we want to be. We want to have enough money to where every time one of our state and local partners says, this is something that needs to be done for the resource, this is something that needs to be in these local counties, we say, well, we've got the money for it.
Okay, well, that's really kind of mind-blowing, is the fact that, we could be potentially losing out on basically free federal money that us as taxpayers, who buy shotgun shells, who buy shotguns, arrows, and all that, that's our 14% tax that we give to help out the wildlife, are losing out. So let's say you're someone like me who doesn't have access to 10,000 acres and who can't drum up a co-op, but, wants to go out and help you guys in the National Wild Turkey Federation. I hunt the National Forest. What exactly would I do about volunteering to put my boots on the ground or my telephone in action to help you guys either drum up support or actually help in a habitat improvement scenario where either, like you said, cutting and mulching Yopon or something along those lines?
Yeah, so first thing is get involved with y'all's local chapter. Wherever you're at, there's NWTF.org has a link that says find a chapter near me. You can see local events and that sort of thing. Get involved with that committee, because obviously if we've got one person here or there that says, hey, I want to help on a national forest or a Caddo National Grasslands or wherever it is you live near, then obviously it's going to be very difficult for our partners on that property to say, yeah, come on by whenever. If we've got a dozen people who want to get together for a field day and do some habitat work, boots on the ground type stuff, then obviously we can put something together. Because if a dozen people spend 10 hours on a Saturday, boom, that's $120. 120 man hours that can be converted to matching dollars to unlock some of those Pittman-Robertson funds, which is pretty cool. So get connected with your local NWTF community that's already in your area. If you don't have an NWTF chapter in your area, call us and let's get one started. Like I said, the only thing that has to happen to keep your chapter running is you have to throw a fundraiser every year, or it'll go inactive and that sort of thing. But again, when I say fundraiser, I'm talking about a big party. You have some barbecue, you win some guns, and you recruit some people to get involved in these other projects you want to do, whether they're youth outreach or their habitat work. So get involved. Make sure your local committee knows, hey, we should do some stuff on the ground, some habitat work on the ground, and then we can start connecting you with our partners at a nearby public land place or something like that, so that we can use the time you spend as matching dollars for Pittman-Robertson funds.
Sounds like a great plan, Jackson. Alrighty, so we've done all the doom and gloom, habitat, and all that stuff, like you said. So do me a favor. Tell us a great turkey hunting story, because I'm an ultimate turkey slayer here who's been on a grand whopping total of one turkey hunt one time where I'm quite certain there was not a turkey anywhere within 100 miles circumference. And Josh, I think you're kind of in the same boat as me when it comes to being an ultimate turkey slayer.
Man, I don't know what you're talking about. I've got 3 mouth calls and a box call that ride in the console of my truck every day. And boy, I'm telling you, them people driving down 45 or I-10 or whatever, they don't know what the heck hit them. They think that there's a big old flock of wild turkeys over there. It sounds so good. And that's sarcasm. Yeah, y'all ought to know me by now. I ain't never turkey hunted before in my life, because I'm kind of like a lot of our listeners out there, man. They don't think that we got turkeys in our neck of the woods. So what's the point of going out there and picking up a box call or slate call or whatever and trying to learn how to do it if we ain't got no turkeys?
That's right. I think probably the most fun turkey hunting I ever had. I grew up in South Alabama, so we were in the pine woods. It was heavily forested. We were calling turkeys out of what seemed like nowhere, right, all the time when we went turkey hunting, and they'd show up, and when they finally got to where you could see them, they were only 20, 30 yards away. As opposed to a couple, 3 years ago, me and my dad went to Missouri. We'd gotten a hunt on the hunt auction at National Convention there in Nashville, our NWTF Convention and Sports Show. We got a chance to go with Honey Creek Outfitters up in north central Missouri. And basically it was the complete opposite of the habitat that I'm used to. Whereas everywhere there would have been trees in Alabama, there was open space. And all the few places where there was open space in Alabama, there were a few trees in Missouri. So that experience was totally different, where we were driving around these farm roads in between pasture lands that we had leasing agreements with, or the outfitter had leasing agreements with, and spotting turkeys in the middle of a field with binoculars. Unheard of in Alabama. And so I thought these guys were crazy. I thought, y'all know these turkeys can see us in this Chevy 4x4. And he said, yeah, but we'll get around them. And so the turkeys acted a little bit differently there, where we would have to find a spot, a corner to pull the truck out, and then have to marine crawl, belly crawl on the ground below a ridge or something for 150 yards or something behind a tail fanning.
So you spot and stalk turkeys is what you're saying.
In Missouri, that's how these buddies do it. And I had never done anything like that before. I had always gotten up before daybreak and listened for the hoot owl to make a turkey gobble, and then try to set up in the right spot and hope he walked by the tree you were leaning against. And all of a sudden we're in Missouri afternoon hunting, for these turkeys, which they were still very wily and they could easily get away from you. Because these are still eastern birds, and they weren't easy hunting. But we were doing a totally different thing, and that was pretty cool. But I think what I remember most is while we were there, and I'm sharing this good time with our friends at the outfitter, My dad's there. We both killed our limit over 3 days. We each got a couple birds, which was absolutely amazing. But it was also the first time I read the book, The 10th Legion, by Colonel Tom Kelly. And if you know about turkey hunting, you've probably already heard that name. And if you don't, you need to read that book or any book by Colonel Tom Kelly, because it goes into just the majesty, the mystery, the wonder of why it is turkey hunting is so dadgum addictive. The good thing is for my job is once I get you to go turkey hunting once, I probably don't have to worry about you being a volunteer with NWTF anymore, because once you feel that experience and you feel a turkey coming to where you're at in the middle of the woods because of what you just said to it with that mouth call or box call or whatever, my job is done. I'm basically selling addictive drugs, and this is called turkey hunting. It's unreal. But Colonel Tom Kelly says it better than anybody else could want to. So if you haven't gotten a copy of that, pick it up on Amazon. Find out why he calls it the 10th Legion. And it's a brotherhood, man. And it's a bunch of people who, this time of year, the flowers start blooming and the pine trees start pollinating, and all of us turkey hunters kind of look at each other knowingly. Where if we run into each other at the bank or the grocery store, we both know we wish we were in the woods.
Yeah, I have to admit that, what initially hooked me on turkey hunting was the fact that, I knew that there were turkeys in East Texas, and I'd heard about release efforts and this, I thought, well, maybe one day I'll get lucky and, maybe I'll see a turkey or I'll hear a turkey. And deer hunting, in bow season a couple years ago, I slammed the truck door, just going to go do a little scouting and go hang a stand, and I slam it and I get a shot gobble. And I was like, there is no way that was a turkey. So I spent the remaining afternoon going, well, it came from that direction. I'm going to go see if I can find this bird. Obviously, I never did. But, yeah, instantly after hearing that, I was like, there needs to be more turkeys in East Texas, because I need to be able to go hunt one and then shoot one and then eat one.
Yeah, that's the way it ought to work. That's the way God intended it.
Well, I can see, a lot of these, I'm a whitetail hunter. That's my passion. That's all I've ever done, besides small game and, a few upland bird hunts here and there. But, this past season, I was able to actually rattle in a decent buck. And so I think that's kind of what's getting me and bringing me into the turkey hunting is, okay, well, obviously I couldn't hear that buck coming. I rattled and grunted, and he come charging in. He knew that he was coming to that buck and grunt, or that buck and rattling call. But with a turkey, it's completely different. You're not just sitting there trying to be quiet. You're out there communicating with the animals and getting involved with their lifestyle, basically. And from what I've seen on TV and YouTube and everything else, and people that I've talked to, I mean, there just ain't no better adrenaline rush than hearing that tom gobble on his way up, up over that hill, and as soon as he crests, all fanned out, and it's too beautiful not to take advantage of over here in East Texas if we have the opportunity to.
Yeah, it's a funny thing with turkey hunting. It's a little different from other species, right? If you go duck hunting and you don't get to shoot a duck, you're like, that was an all right morning, right? But there's so many turkey hunters who love to mentor a hunt, take somebody who's never been before, or go with a buddy and do the calling for them, or just go sit there, because it's enjoyable for anybody who's in on that experience. It's not just the person pulling the trigger and pointing the gun. Anybody who's there, and I think it goes for the people who put on these great turkey shows. Like, for instance, if you want to know how to do some turkey hunting, check out our friends at Primos. They're the Truth hunting series is what I grew up watching. The Truth About Hunting by Will Primos, and he's our communicator of the year for the NWTF this year. They've got a great channel on YouTube, and it talks about how to do all this sort of stuff to get involved for the first time in turkey hunting or whatever kind of hunting. But man, everybody who's there experiencing that interaction with the turkey coming in, that sort of thing, you don't have to be the one that pulls the trigger to get that same adrenaline rush. It's a little bit different than other kind, like dove hunting or something like that, where the adrenaline rush comes from knocking one out of the sky, which I love too. But so many people, love to be the other guy there who just gets to experience the whole thing, doesn't have to pull a trigger. And so that's the good thing. Hopefully we can continue to build on that, leverage that addiction so that we can bring more people into the fold, or into the flock, as we like to say, and pull more hunters in to sustain us.
Well, it sounds like a great thing to be a part of. Jackson. Josh, do you have any final thoughts?
No, man. Jackson, I can't thank you enough for coming out and spending the time with us this afternoon. I know I got a lot out of it personally. Like I told you in our phone call prior, leading up to this podcast. Hey, I'm going to be one of the guys that's out on the outside listening in, but hey, I've got a microphone in front of my face to where I can actually get those questions out there where these guys maybe have to send in a request for me to read off to you. So again, thank you for coming out here, taking the time for us, and man, I'm looking forward to what we got working up for the potential East Texas Hunting Club NWTF chapter. So for you guys out there in East Texas Hunting Club land, it's still being worked on. These things don't happen overnight. They take some time, but I think we're going to have a good opportunity for us here in the near future with the NWTF.
And Jackson, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say I'm a proud member of the Facebook group East Texas Hunting Club, and I look forward to hopefully meeting a lot of you guys and gals in person, and hopefully mobilizing this community we've got to start giving back to the resource in as fun a way as we can come up with. We're going to try to figure out some fun ways to get involved at fundraisers and boots on the ground type things, so that all these people who care so much to engage online can also start giving back as a group. And once you get a bunch of hunters together, the history of the North American conservation model shows when hunters get together and they all share a motive, because they have that shared passion that unites them all, they can get stuff done. And I'm excited to see what happens from this community that you've already built with East Texas Hunting Club. And I'm fired up about the response that hopefully we'll get from the Cast Blast Grill Chill crowd. If you have any questions, check out NWTF.org. Shoot me an email at jharris@NWTF.net. We've got events coming up all throughout the spring and the summer. If you can get to one nearby, we'd love to have you, and shoot me any questions you've got. But thanks for having me, man, and thanks for supporting the NWTF as we save the habitat and save the hunt.
Oh, definitely, Jackson, and you'll be seeing me at the event in April, and you said that's going to be at the Whitehall Community Center?
Yeah, that's April 26th, I believe, which is a Thursday afternoon. There's a lot of great stuff happening in Grimes County that weekend. We're going to start it off Thursday night there in Whitehall. It's going to be a small event, but you can go ahead and purchase your tickets online right now for singles, couples, sponsor tables, whatever. You can get those all online. Just check out NWTF.org/event, and then look for the Grimes County chapter.
Well, definitely. I'll go ahead and do that as soon as we're done wrapping this up. And like I always say to everybody, you guys make sure you get outside and enjoy your public lands, enjoy the outside, and go out there and go spend a little time squirrel hunting, scout some turkeys here for next month, and get out and enjoy those white bass and crappie that are starting to run, and go out there and take a little bit of your public lands, your wildlife, and bring it home and cook it up. You guys have a good one.